Second World War was etched into Europe's history as an epic written in blood and fire. From 1939 to 1945, the continent endured dark days under the shadow of Nazi Germany's occupying armies. Cities were shaken by bombs, families were torn apart, and hopes were extinguished one by one. Yet in the midst of this chaos, the sparks of resistance never died out. While history books often highlight male leaders, generals, and statesmen, there were other heroes who changed the course of the war: women. In the occupied streets of France, in the ghettos of Poland, in the underground shelters of the Netherlands, and in many other places, women of the resistance fought against the Nazi regime with courage, intelligence, and sacrifice. They spied, organized sabotage, published underground newspapers, rescued prisoners, and risked their lives to keep the spirit of their nations alive. Their stories illuminate Europe's shared history, yet, unfortunately, they have often remained in the shadows, forgotten or left untold. This text brings to light the heroism of those hidden women of resistance during World War II, sharing their little-known but deeply moving stories from across the continent. In the early years of the war, as Nazi Germany's armies ravaged Europe, resistance movements began to emerge in the occupied countries. These movements were not limited to armed struggle. They carried out a wide range of activities, including intelligence gathering, propaganda, sabotage, and humanitarian aid. Women played critical roles at every stage of this resistance. Social gender norms often led to women being seen as harmless, which made them virtually invisible in the eyes of the Nazis. Yet this invisibility became their greatest weapon. Women carried messages in plain sight of the Gestapo, delivered coded information, and even took part in armed operations. Their courage not only influenced the outcome of the war, but also challenged traditional gender roles, redefining women's place in society. In France, one of the most striking figures of the resistance was Nancy Wake. Born in New Zealand, she had worked as a journalist before the war. But with the Nazi occupation, she became a fervent fighter in the French resistance. Known as the White Mouse, Wake became one of the most wanted individuals by the Gestapo. She was brave, charismatic, and fearless, riding her bicycle across hundreds of kilometers of French countryside to carry messages between resistance groups. Passing through Nazi patrols, she disguised herself as an ordinary peasant woman while delivering coded information. In 1943, with the Gestapo closing in on her, she was forced to flee to Spain, but she did not give up. She made her way to England, joined the Special Operations Executive SOE, and parachuted back into France. There, she organized a resistance force of 7,000 fighters, carried out sabotage operations, and derailed Nazi trains. Wake's story was not only an example of courage, but also of intelligence and resilience. Her leadership strengthened the morale of the French resistance and helped pave the way for the Allied invasion of Normandy. In Poland, Irina Sendler became a symbol of hope in one of the darkest corners of the war. In the Warsaw Ghetto, she risked her life to save thousands of Jewish children from Nazi persecution. As a social worker, Sendler had permission to enter and leave the ghetto. Using this privilege, she smuggled children out with forged documents, hiding them in sacks, suitcases, and even inside ambulances, and placed them in safe houses. It is estimated that she rescued around 2,500 children. What made Sendler's actions even more remarkable was that she preserved the true identities of the rescued children in a jar, hoping to reunite them with their families after the war. In 1943, she was captured by the Gestapo, tortured, yet refused to betray her comrades. Her miraculous escape saved her life at the last moment. Sendler's story shows how compassion and courage can shine even in humanity's darkest hours. In the Netherlands, Hannie Schaft, known as the girl with the red hair, was another resistance hero. A young law student, Schaft joined the armed resistance against the Nazi occupation. She became renowned for her daring actions, carrying out assassinations of Nazi officers, engaging in sabotage, and calling the people to resist through underground publications. Her red hair became both a symbol and a nightmare for the Gestapo. However, in 1945, during the final days of the war, she was captured and executed. Schaft's story is a striking example of a young woman sacrificing her life for her ideals. In the Netherlands, her memory was honored as that of a national hero, yet internationally, her name still remains relatively unknown. These women did not only demonstrate individual acts of heroism, They also played key roles in organizing resistance movements. For example, in France, Marie-Madeleine Fourcade was the leader of a resistance network called Alliance. This network provided the Allies with critical intelligence by tracking Nazi movements. Despite the challenges of leading as a woman, Fourcade coordinated thousands of resistance fighters. Her network monitored the movements of German U-boats, giving the Allied navies a crucial advantage. Fourcade's leadership proved that women could be highly effective not only in the field but also in strategic planning. The women of the resistance stood out not only for their courage but also for their creativity. For example, in Belgium, Anne-Marie de Jong established an escape route known as the Comet Line. This route helped downed Allied pilots and prisoners escape from occupied Europe to Spain and from there to England. Despite her young age, de Jong managed this dangerous operation and saved hundreds of soldiers. However, in 1943, she was captured and sent to a concentration camp. She survived and was recognized as a hero after the war. Her story demonstrates how an individual effort can create an international impact. The stories of these women reveal that war was not only fought on the front lines, but also in everyday life. Under Nazi occupation, ordinary people accomplished extraordinary things. Women transcended the roles that society had assigned to them, taking on dangerous tasks such as espionage, sabotage, and rescue missions. Their courage was not only a fight against the Nazi regime, but also a defiance of gender inequality. In the chaos of war, women fought on equal terms with men and often proved even more effective, as they attracted less attention. For instance, a French resistance fighter, Lucie Aubrac, devised an incredible plan to rescue her husband from the Gestapo. With a fabricated pregnancy story, she tricked the Gestapo and secured his freedom. Aubrac's intelligence and bravery showed that resistance was won not only with weapons but also with wit. Across Europe, these women fought in different countries and under different circumstances, yet they were united by a common purpose: freedom. Their stories were not limited to acts of individual heroism. They also reflected the power of solidarity across an occupied continent. In Norway, women resistance fighters used fishing boats to carry out sabotage operations against Nazi ships. In Italy, partisan women waged guerrilla warfare against Nazi forces in the mountainous regions. Many of these women never had their names recorded in history, yet their actions directly influenced the outcome of the war. The stories of the women in the shadows of resistance also played an important role in Europe's post-war reconstruction. When the war ended, many of these women quietly returned to their daily lives. Some received medals, others were forgotten, but all of them had contributed to Europe's freedom. For example, Nancy Wake returned to Australia after the war and lived a quiet life, yet her memories kept the spirit of the resistance alive. Irina Sendler continued her social work in post-war Poland, but her modest nature kept her heroism in the background. Hannie Schaft's memory became a symbol in the Netherlands, but internationally, she is still not sufficiently recognized. The stories of these women offer a profound insight into Europe's shared history. They showed that the war was not only won on the front lines, but also in the streets, homes, and underground shelters. Their courage was not just a struggle against the Nazi regime, but also a defiance of social norms. Their actions revealed the power of women to shape history. Today, the stories of these women deserve greater recognition in museums, monuments, and history books across Europe. They should not be remembered merely as forgotten heroes, but as leaders who stood at the forefront of the continent's fight for freedom.